Hey everybody, let's talk about 8 bars in a Nicolas de Grigny piece for organ, part of an organ mass, actually, that has a powerful use of a deceptive cadence. For those who aren't sure what a deceptive cadence is, formally speaking, it is when, during a full cadence, the 5 does not resolve to a 1, but instead to a minor 6 or even a flat 2, and other sterile numbers such as that, and other things not often covered by theoretical terms. The idea is clear. After setting up a close, you instead divert that payload from its goal. Now, I would argue that deceptive cadences really come in 2 parts. There's the deceptive part, the diversion, I call it, and the resolution, which comes some bars later. What the deception part perhaps does is create a heightened tension in all the following material until the resolution. Tonality assumed a lot of things, but one of the things it assumed is that every dissonance, whether melodic or structural, had a resolution. It assumed that order would inevitably be the end result of all music. We don't feel quite as compelled to obey that principle today, but beyond a principle, it's functional. Within music, the sense of tension and resolution is what creates part of our experience of music and creates dramatic arc. Skilled composers of 2016 understand this no differently than skilled composers of 1316. So, let's look at these 8 bars. And remember that looking at these bars, it's not just looking at a French organist in the time of Louis XIV playing liturgical music. It's to look at a tool that is essential to our apprehension of music, and it's being used expertly. So it doesn't matter if you're a singer-songwriter, singer in Bushwick, or an amateur composer obsessed with Henry Purcell who eats a box of Entenmann's donuts while he plays Diablo 3 and lives in Bay Ridge, which is definitely not me. So let's get to it. So you can see the score here. We're going to start a little bit before bar 11, but let's listen to it. Basically, what happens is the actual cadence starts at 11, I would say, and it's diverted here, where my mouse is, into a deceptive cadence, where this movement moves upward. And the resolution point to that comes in bar 15, when the cadence is resolved. And in between this deceptive cadence and the resolution is where my pulse quickens a little bit, and as a listener, I'm invested now in a different way in the flow of energy, of ethereal energy, one might say. So, or one might not say that more happily. So here we go. Let's take a listen. We're going to start at we're going to start at second 30. Here we go. Now, granted, we're not listening to the whole piece, so placing yourself in the middle of that flow of energy is impossible. However, I did start it quite a ways before because I wanted you to see how this deceptive cadence goes by and creates this little space here around 14 of heightened tension. So I also want you to look at something. Look at how the shape of the bass supports this cadence. From 11 to 12, it descends, by fifths, harmonically speaking. So this drags your attention somewhere, downward. But then, when the cadence hits, the deception part, it moves upward, and it reverses both harmonically and melodically where you thought you would go, right? It goes up, stepwise motion. In this way, the deceptive cadence itself is framed by reversing the movement of the preceding measures. No surprise then that the material after it refocuses our attention on downward movement, here, 14. And the downward movement has an implied cadential end. You'll run out of keys eventually. So down it goes until the resolving cadence, which is this big 6/4 thing, which to me just feels so powerful, and it jumps up and draws attention to itself and the geometry of the passage by jumping up when our attention is focused on this downward movement. So let's take one more moment to just listen to how beautiful this is. Start you a little later. It goes. And actually that whole piece is really amazing. So in conclusion, why I think this passage works so well as an example of a deceptive cadence is because of two things. A, it's made up of a dichotomy between a deception, or diversion as I've been calling it, and its resolution. The initial deception leads to an in-between period of latent tension for the listener. And B, because the shape of the entire idea is designed to frame the two linked cadences. Upward movement, this time by a leap. So perhaps my analysis seems like tracing the motions of the planets and interpreting them how I see fit. And maybe there's some justice to that. But perhaps, too, subtlety is needed in order to understand how music functions. And if you're sensitive enough to it, maybe you can see patterns in the stars that really are there. And those patterns explain why a given piece of music succeeds at moving someone or does not. In something very small is sometimes contained a whole world. So anyway, that's all for this video. If you'd like to check out more de Grigny, I recommend it. He's an interesting composer who died young and yet left a very important mark on the French organ tradition. And I would like to think on music. Both him and the tradition he represents are pretty unique. I'll put some recordings down in the description that I really liked. So if you like the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, or if you want, you can help me get my Patreon campaign more bustling by heading over there and either just checking the stuff out, which is great, or pledging something if you want. I only recently started doing these videos, so my craft at that is not what you'd call godlike. If you have any suggestions, feel free to let me know. Peace.